Welcome to the Breakfast Leadership Show, where we interview global thought leaders on business, leadership, and life. Here's your host, keynote speaker, best-selling author, and chief burnout officer of the Breakfast Leadership Network, Michael Levitt.
Welcome back. I've got Tammy Alvarez on the line. Tammy, how are you?
I am great, Michael. How are you doing today?
I am awesome. Really looking forward to this conversation. We had scheduled it a little while ago, and I had to change it, which I've pretty much been saying to all my guests. Apologies for that. You know, life gets lifey is something that is said.
Nice that we can have the opportunity to adjust to that, though, right?
It is, and that is a freedom that I don't take for granted. It's something that is really, really beneficial, and in the designing of how I live my life it's so important to be able to have a little bit of elbow room here and there to shuffle some things around when things come up. So really, really appreciate it. So for those that don't know you, why don't you share a little about you, and then we'll dive into this conversation.
Sounds good. I'm the founder of Career Winner Circle. We are an executive coaching and career strategy firm that work with mid to senior level leaders to really level up their performance, reassess their career strategies. And really at the end of the day, our goal is to make sure that everyone loves Monday mornings again. And how many times you wake up from the soul crushing grind and you're like, oh, I have to do this one more day. You get that pit in your stomach on Sunday nights that you're just dreading the week ahead. And too many people think that's normal. And so we work with our clients to help get out of that rut, create a meaningful path forward in however that shows up for them. And that's what we do for our clients. My personal background, I was an executive on Wall Street for 20 years. Managed up to 2,000 people in 36 countries, solved all kinds of big fancy problems. I was known as a transformation expert. I loved my career until I didn't. And when I didn't, I decided to cash out, move to a tropical island in Central America off the coast of Belize, and started this coaching business about 6 years ago.
Yeah, you loved it until you didn't. And that's, I think a lot of people are kind of in that right now. And now not everybody needs to, or maybe should, he wants to, or, and they're going, okay, where's my globe? I got to look and see where Belize is, where's that? But ultimately it comes down to, really being in tune with yourself. And as we were talking about in the pre-show is, people are just in the survival mode right now. So they're not focusing on them per se and what they want to do. And I see it time and time again with people. They hit this wall or this rut or whatever you want to call it, and the amygdala just says, okay, we're just going to camp out here for a bit. We're too scared to go anywhere. And they just continue to be miserable in their roles in life, everything else, because it's all intertwined. When people say work-life balance, I'm one to say that does not exist. You are one entity. You need to harmonize what you're doing as best you can, but trying to balance it is like trying to balance an egg. It's not very easy unless you crack the bottom of it. Then it'll stand up, but then you get yolk everywhere, and it's just kind of a mess. So
that's right.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting, Michael, because, when you mention people are miserable, I wish more people were miserable. What I'm seeing is this apathetic haze that has come over. So you don't love it. You don't hate it. You're just stuck in this no man's land. And that cycle of apathy, that cycle of being comfortable, that cycle of just hiding under your desk and hoping you're not the next one to get let go is a dangerous thing to do in terms of your career and how you want to progress. And the further along you get in your career, the more dangerous this becomes. Because the more expensive you are, the harder it is to find a job, the more expertise you have, the more competition and the less roles. And so there's this flood of apathy, I think, is really where a lot of the workforce is today. And you can see it by the research results of 10 plus years of declining employee engagement and rising. Right. The increase in, the lack of enjoyment in what people do. And I think COVID brought a lot of that out when all of the fun, shiny things that we used to distract ourselves with went away. And there was this surge of like, okay, I'm going to do something for me. And the economy turned. People were, the employees were in the driver's seat, and remote work kicked in and everything was fine. And then a couple of years later, now the tides are back. Right? Layoffs are happening. People are getting called back to work. And I think the biggest thing I'd love for your listeners to sit with is that during times of chaos, there's opportunity. And that when people are hiding under their desks, hoping they don't get fired, that is the best opportunity to surge. And when you start to really be more introspective, because we spend a lot of time trying to fit in, right? Can I fit into the culture? Do I adjust with my boss? And we're working so hard to get ourselves to fit into this thing that we're doing it the opposite way. And when you really start to lean in on what are the things that give you the most energy, and notice I didn't say money, skills, power, influence, but what are the things that really light you up every day that you could do for 12 hours a day and never be tired? And what are the values and vibe and the culture that really light you up to where you're getting the best out of yourself? We've all been in those situations where we're doing something that energizes us with people that that energize us. And they're small points in time in our career. But for some reason, we don't think that we can have it all the time. But we can. And that's really what I think people are struggling with is you're stuck. You're not sure what to do. And you mentioned the funk, and no one prepares you for a mid-career funk. You don't see it in a college course. You don't see it in an MBA course. Like no one says at some point in time, you're not going to love what you do anymore. And so very smart, successful people who are confident and used to being in control of what I call an accidental career find themselves in roles that no longer serve them, but they're ill-equipped just because of experience and being able to, really lean in to know what to do about it. And all of these gremlins kick in. All the I'm too old, I'm too expensive, it's too late, all the things that get in our way. And so we quit before we even start.
I see it too often. So much talent out there that's just kind of stuck, and they don't have to be that way. They pull out every excuse in the book. I'm past my prime. No one needs me. I'll never be able to find a place. Like you need to. I was listening to a book that came out, I think, a couple decades ago called Execution. Great book, pretty good or quick read on an audiobook format, especially if you do it at 2x speed. Pro tip for people. If you can hear it. And sometimes some people, if you put them on 2x speed, dogs start barking and howling for some reason because they hit a note that humans can't hear. But one of the things that kept driving home on this, which in a lot of the book, I found entertaining to a certain extent because they were talking about some companies that were doing really, really good at the turn of the century. And now, of course, they're not. So it's like, it's that flash in time. It's like, wow, they're doing it right. Oh, what happened? Now they're doing it wrong. I see time and time again where it just boils down to, the title of the book was execution. I think people thrive in environments, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I think people thrive, whether they're mid-level or C-level executives, they thrive when they are actually executing the plan. It's great to come up with strat plans. It's great to come up with ideas and plans and draw out all the potential pitfalls that we're facing, including what's going on in the world right now. You just say, okay, we're going to map this out and we're going to be able to navigate. If it does this, we do this. If it does this, we do that. And that's an engaging exercise for some as well. But the actual execution of a plan, execution of initiatives that grow the business or bring on more people or make a bigger impact in society or a new invention, all those things, I think people get addicted to that execution, and sometimes it takes some really strong dedication to be able to make sure that you do that time and time again. It's not a once and done. It's like, yay, we rolled this out. Great. Okay. Awesome. What's next?
That's for me lately. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting. I spent a lot of time earlier in building the business and really digging into what my clients wanted and the future that they wanted for themselves. And I expected money and power and, title and all of those things that we say we want. The one thing that showed up most often and almost universally was impact. People want to make an impact. And that drives back to purpose, right? It drives back to connecting the why to what we do. And if we don't feel like we're making an impact, if we don't think the work that we do matters, then we need to make a change. And as we grow in our career, we start making impacts in different ways. And, so I think as you think about your seasonality of your career and where you are, the same strategy that you used 5 years ago is probably not where you should be in order to have that fulfillment from making an impact. Because now you've grown, you've learned, and maybe it's time for you to teach somebody else, or you're ready to take that next step into leadership. And we should all be looking at, where, what is my purpose? Why do I do what I do? Why do I care about doing something that's important? And then where are my talents and skills and abilities best used so I can make the biggest impact? Because when you do that, then you're energized, you're engaged again, and you feel like all of the things are falling back into place.
And that's the thing. It's, I deal with a lot of people with, that are burned out and companies that are having retention issues and whatnot. And time again, much like that example I gave a little earlier about a company that 2 decades ago was crushing it when everybody was falling apart, to now they're struggling while their companies are passing them away. It's like, it's the same company. It's like, what happened? It's communication issues. It's not being agile enough. It's not having the right people in place at the time when you need them. Because again, I worked for an internet market research firm at the turn of the century and during the .com era and all of that, which was absolutely a zoo time.
I was in staffing, so
you know it. When a recruiter places you and then 6 months later and they call you, I'm not going to get into ethics on this. The job's a job, but they call you and they say, how you liking the job? Oh, that's good. I like it. Do you really like the job? Why?
Right.
Because I got another one over here that pays, at that time it was like 20 grand more. I'm like, when I was in my 20s, yeah, 20 grand more. But yeah. I'm like, an extra 20 grand back then was like someone handed me $1 million today. It's like, sweet. Yes, let's go. And, it was just an absolute zoo. And then reality came back and it was like, okay, not as much. Well, at least it was fun to ride that. But so again, companies change and, come and go. But I think ultimately what it boils down to is, really spending some time, and this goes for companies, but also goes for leaders and individuals, spend some time, taking stock where you are right now. Because what you said, my leadership desires and plans 5 years ago are most definitely different today. And it's because I've evolved in some ways, maybe dissolved in others, but it boils down to just understanding where you are, what's invigorating you basically to make sure that those Monday mornings don't stink. And what do you want to do with your life, your impact? What's important to you? Because again, that changes it. But, going back to what we've talked about through the conversation, it seems like a lot of people just get into this. Well, this is where I'm supposed to be and this is what I'm supposed to do. And they don't give themselves the permission to explore.
And I think also we underestimate the impact it has on our whole life happiness.
Mm-hmm.
So many people, especially Americans, associate so much of who they are with what they do. And when that starts to fall out of alignment with what brings you joy and energy, then it's impossible for the rest of your life not to start to suck too. And we think we're good, we're brave. You come home at night, like showtime. It's like, hi, honey, I'm home, like Fantasy Island, right? Smiles, everyone smiles. And we think that no one notices that we're miserable, we're stressed, we're burnt out, we can't find a way forward. But when we realize that that's also impacting the people that we love the most, then I think that would start to, and when you realize that you're not as good at keeping a secret as you think you are, and start to make those changes, then I think you find the bravery to say no more. And that I want better for me. I want better for those who I love, and doing the work that it takes to get there, which isn't actually that hard, believe it or not.
It's getting back to your true self. Mm-hmm. And as long as you have a halfway functioning compass and a plan and, and this is something I do. This is an exercise I do with myself and obviously with, people and teams I've worked with, is when you're reflecting and you're looking back at things, maybe you didn't hit your Q3 results and everyone's upset, including the stock market and everybody else. Mm-hmm. It's easy to, everyone be upset, nervous, scared. it's best to just kind of take a stop, take a break, come back at it, look at it with a childlike curiosity. Don't get mad. Don't get mad at this division for not doing this or the suppliers for making inferior products. Don't, those are factual things. Okay. They didn't make something that would withstand what we needed to. Okay. Great. All right. We note that, but it's difficult because we are emotional things and you want to, and it's because a lot of times I couple it with the passion, but a lot of times it's more of a CYA situation thinking we have another bad quarter like this. I'm going to be, I'm out and I'm going to be calling Tammy because I need to use her services, which is not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, but you call me before you need me, not after, right? Oh, they're fine. But, proactive is way better. You're in a better mindset.
Exactly. It's like people go to the doctor when they're sick instead of going to the doctor when they're well to make sure what do I need to do to keep
to make sure that they stay well. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think there's some self-shaming that goes on. Being in the middle of your career, knowing you're in this funk and knowing what you don't like, but having no idea what you do. It's like you feel like you should have this all figured out by now. And so there's a lot of weirdness that goes on in that headspace of these very confident, successful people. When they're staring down this tunnel, they have no idea what they want to do next, but they do know that they don't like what they're doing now. And we're just not trained to think about things in those terms. I referred to an accidental career earlier, and, we don't really plan our career. We're great at building business strategy, and we're great at executing business strategy and mitigating risk and doing all those things to get them done and measuring success and having goals and specific things. But we try and apply those same principles to our career, they fall apart. And so we end up starting a career and then opportunities come, we take them or we don't. And then that's just kind of how we bumble through. Very rarely is somebody going to say, oh, in 10 years from now, I'm going to be a rocket scientist who happens to be a librarian today, right? That's just not how most people work. And so it's a really weird space when things have been going great, kind of on autopilot. You work hard, you get recognized, you move forward, and then all of a sudden it doesn't. And you haven't done anything different. So much like the companies that you talk about that aren't making the cut, the reason they're not making the cut is because they haven't done anything different. And it's the same thing with us in our careers and as leaders. If you don't adapt and adjust, you're going to get behind. So you need to continually check in and continually work to, make sure that, you're doing the things that you love. And an industry that you went to school for, that you started with, could be a dying industry and no more fun. And so why is the last man on the Titanic? Right? When there's winners, there's losers. So why wouldn't you want to move to an industry that's growing and thriving and having fun versus going through your 10th year of trying to cut your way to prosperity because you're on a sinking ship? And so these are all choices that people can make. And these are all things that people can do. And easier than they think it is sometimes. But you need that guidance because you've not been trained how to do it. And it's not how we tend to think about our careers.
Yeah, I see it all the time. And there was a recent stat that I saw in my original career is accounting. I was a public accountant, worked for a CPA firm. I did accounting for the first chunk of my career. And much like over 80% of the people with college degrees were not working in the field that we have our degree in, which I think is a good thing. A lot of people will be like, really? It's like, yeah, it's because you've taken risks. You've changed. You've learned new skill sets. That's actually growth. So it actually makes a ton of sense when, most of us haven't, which is, and I tell that to everybody that, especially when they're starting, it's like, well, just pick, if you're not sure, pick some coursework that is foundational, that can be kind of the foundation of a variety of different industries, because there you'll have some basics, but just explore, it's, you get one kick, depending on who you talk to. You get one kick at this thing, and you might as well have fun while you're doing it. Yeah. Because that goes with your career, with life, everything else. It's like you want to make impact. Okay, where would you like to make impact in? And research it. No excuse not to be able to research it. There's no excuse not to be able to learn about any industry. Go to YouTube University. It's going to be there, or Udemy, or somewhere else. You can spend a few bucks you're going to spend it at $6 anyway, which I have to call it $9 now. It's no longer $6. It's at least $9 if to get out of that place. But that's the cost of inflation. But their stock price is doing quite well. This is not an investment show, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. So don't take any advice from me, especially on investing. But I think one thing that came to mind when you were talking a moment ago is, I had a conversation with somebody that was retired, that worked in corporate for a long time and was senior level and all of that. And he said, when he finally, quote unquote, figured it out, he was mad on how simple it was. And I looked at him, it's like, well, what is it? And he wouldn't tell me at first. He's like, no, you need to figure it out. But then he went on a little bit longer that eventually you'll figure it out. And I was like, okay, I get it. And that's the thing. Everybody's a little bit different, but once you figure it out, then you'll be mad at yourself for not figuring out sooner, but don't be happy that you figured it out.
About what's coming next, right?
Exactly.
So instead of lamenting all the lost opportunities, just be excited about what's next.
Be positive and look forward. And that is a message that's not just for career path and choices. That's a message for today, right now. October 25th, the time of this recording. Look for those positive moments, design them, add them into your daily routine. It'll help offset all of the challenges that the world faces. But quite frankly, the world's always challenged. Always. So there's always something going on, and it impacts some people more than others. But ultimately, if you're in a happier, healthier state, what that's going to do is it's going to make it easier for you to be able to, work with Tammy and get some ideas on what your experiences are and what would you like to do. And then you find those areas where that would make a match, and then you pursue it accordingly.
Yeah, you've got to show up differently these days. And both starting from within and, getting into that area that this is what energizes me. Here is where I can add the most value and make the biggest impact. Because what we find is there's a scarcity mindset when people think about making a change. You immediately think you're going to lose something, whether it's money, influence, your stature, all those things. But if you do it right and you find the things that energize you and you apply those in areas where those things are in high demand and in short supply, you are going to be like 90% of our customers who are making 20 to 30% more after they make that move. And they're happy. They're like, why did I wait so long? So yeah, that's just interesting how things work out.
Absolutely. So Tammy, I love this conversation. Where can people find out more about you and all this amazing work you're doing?
Great. So they can find me at Tammy Alvarez on LinkedIn, also Career Winners Circle on LinkedIn, careerwinnerscircle.com for our website. And then we also have a book coming out in January. It's called Escaping the Career Trap. And you'll be able to find that on Amazon and all other kind of places. So that's where you can start to find us.
Awesome. And I'll definitely have that information in the show notes. So Tammy, thank you so much for this interview and this time today. Really appreciate you and all this great work you're doing.
Great. Thanks. It was great collaborating with you today. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Breakfast Leadership Show, part of the Breakfast Leadership Network. Visit breakfastleadership.com for tips on empowering your business and your life.